You know what? Merry Christmas Eve to America. And to Ed Henry and Molly Line, who are here this morning.
Yes, fabulous to be here on this Christmas Eve.
Wait, did Lisa Booth oversleep again?
No.
No. This was always planned. We're just teasing Lisa. She woke up a little late.
And can you turn up the volume on this a little bit, Tova, please? This is my favorite Christmas song. This is Aaron Neville. Please come home for Christmas.
That's awesome. We're doing
I just love Aaron Neville. Aaron Neville, that nasally voice.
Yeah, it's great. He's got that little waver in there.
We are choosing the music at the top of the hour, our favorite Christmas music, but you can write us in as well and make
favorites.
a request.
Yeah, it can't be all about us. So
Friends
we definitely
at
want to hear your
foxnews.com.
favorite songs as well.
Let us know. We're going to hear your favorite songs, too. I can't
Yeah, they're
wait.
coming up. We're not going to tell you.
An eclectic mix.
There's a lot of news as well.
It's true. A little bit of news, always.
We're going to let it build.
Merry Christmas. Thanks for sticking with us. Be with us all morning if you will. Get a cup of coffee and join us. But yes, as Ed mentioned, some big news yesterday as the Washington Post first reported, and others have subsequently reported, that the FBI's deputy director, Andrew McCabe, is reportedly set to retire next year. So he's been on Capitol Hill testifying recently. He did 7.5 hours of testimony, reports of some conflicting messages.
Twice. He did that twice.
Exactly.
House Intelligence Committee and then I think the Judiciary
Correct.
Committee.
And a lot of some controversy surrounding around that.
On the
He's
griddle.
apparently made the decision to retire when he gets to his...
Get the benefits. You got to wait for that
20
deadline.
years, gets his pension,
Right, exactly.
he's going to be done. Yeah, is what we hear.
Yeah, and the president was tweeting about this because he's been very angry with the leadership at the FBI, as you know, and what he said reacting to these news reports: how can FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, the man in charge, along with leaking James Comey of the phony Hillary Clinton investigation, including her 33,000 illegally deleted emails, be given $700,000 for wife's campaign by Clinton puppets during investigation? He goes on, let me explain what that is first, and then we'll dive deep, which is Andrew McCabe, as deputy director of the FBI under James Comey, he stated...
FBI Director Andrew McCabe is racing the clock to retire with full benefits. 90 days to go. So we shall see how this all actually
Part of that
falls
indictment
out.
is, of course, no one ever gets fired in the federal government. They just wait their time out to collect the pension benefits that we all pay for. This is the same Andrew McCabe who's known as Andy in the texts, we believed so, between Peter Strzok and his girlfriend Lisa Page, talking about a potential insurance policy.
So this is in real time during the 2016 campaign. McCabe, as deputy director, is helping to oversee this investigation of Hillary Clinton's email server. His wife's getting money from Clinton pals earlier, the year before. And then Peter Strzok is the lead agent, overseeing the Hillary Clinton interview, helping to rewrite James Comey's exoneration statement for Hillary Clinton that was done a couple months before she was exonerated, a couple months before she was even interviewed. So all of these senior people at the FBI had ties to the Clintons.
And more broadly speaking, so many people have been shuffled around, moved, left their jobs as the entire investigation has been unfolding. The Trump dossier investigation, the Trump-Russia investigation. So various people have either left their positions or now here we are talking about a potential retirement
Including
in
James
March.
Baker, the chief counsel, is expected to be leaving as well.
And that's
reassigned, as they say.
That's not even to mention the DOJ, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, all the things that have happened there as well. Some might call it the draining of the FBI swamp, if you will, if there really was a partisan affiliation there. J. Christian Adams was on the program earlier, on justice, had this to say about the politicos in the DOJ and FBI and who they like to protect. Listen.
Grassley has been asking questions of Andrew McCabe, sending letters and whatnot about reports that he used his FBI email to promote his wife's campaign, which could be a Hatch Act violation of politicking on using federal resources.
Some have liked to point out some irony in that aspect, of course.
Yeah, just a little bit. Well, we've had some folks on our program over the last couple of weeks who have predicted that this exact type of a shakeup was going to happen. Take a listen to Sarah Carter and Trey Gowdy.
He's talking about Andrew McCabe's closed-door testimony with various committees and whatnot. Interesting, because we learned last week that Andrew McCabe said behind closed doors, among other things, that he couldn't recall, details of when he learned about the dossier and whether or not the FBI helped pay for that dossier. I mean, these are big questions. Were federal taxpayer dollars used to help collect this dirt on Donald Trump that ends up boomeranging in part
and the timeline
into this,
really matters if it was used to get information through the FISA court and to actually spy on the Trump campaign in the course of the run-up to the election.
You know who's had the same thing that she couldn't recall dozens and dozens of times? crooked Hillary Clinton when she was investigated by the FBI, under oath. The president calls her crooked Hillary Clinton.
Secretary Hillary Clinton, you said?
Or crooked, either one, whatever the president uses. And in this particular case, she was not under oath, was not, there's no actual consequences there. It is the MO of someone who might know something that they can't give up. Say, I do not recall. And so there are a lot of concerns about that behind-the-scenes testimony that he gave and where that could lead to. So a lot of smoke. We'll see where the fire is.
We shall see where it all leads. Turning now to your headlines, the Department of Homeland...
And win the Armed Forces Bowl, not too bad. Go Army. Congratulations.
I feel like you have a bias in that.
Just
maybe a little bit.
I've never had a bias ever, Ed.
Well, we are going to be showing some of our Christmas pics from when we were kids and where he got hit.
Was where he got hit after he took the photo.
I thought you meant a city.
He went down. So we've got a lot of military members here, folks deployed, family members.
And, yes, it's a great song. It's a fun song.
It's one of the funny ones, yeah.
If I had to pick who it would be Michael in Las Vegas. Yeah. What is it? Mountain time there
Still
right
awake.
now? So it's
Pacific.
Is it Pacific time in Las Vegas? So it's 3:30 a.m. His day is ending, not starting right now.
He's getting ready for Grandma to come over.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, he's having a great time out there right now.
Keep sending us your music requests, friends@foxnews.com, as well as your military, any photos you have from Christmas, but also any you have from being deployed or in the military. We want to see those.
Yeah, maybe if you got some presents piled up under the tree and the kids are getting it, antsy about it.
That's true.
You just put them out there early and make them look at them. That's good. The anticipation, the shaking of them.
I remember low crawling to my grandma's tree to peek into the gift. My brother and I would do it. It's not good. I feel bad about it.
You guys were sneaky back then.
So what about people are talking about actually giving the gift of experiences rather than material gifts around the holidays, around Christmas. And so there was a study done by NPD Group about gift giving, and they found that 40% of shoppers plan to give gift cards, event tickets, other intangible gifts. And I like to do that, especially with my son. He loves the NBA. Go to a real cool game, not one that's obvious in Washington where we live. Go to another city.
It works out for you too, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're giving away the secret. No, but he's gotten a chance to meet some NBA players and stuff, and that kind of thing is just something you can't.
And so memorable.
Figure out, you can't write down on a piece of paper this is the gift. You just go, and then all of a sudden you run into people. The game goes into overtime. You just don't plan for it. It's spontaneous. It's fun.
It's great. I think you also, with young kids, you can see so many toys piling up into the tree. It's like, A, we don't need this.
Yeah.
B, it's a bunch of crap and trinkets that are going to be broken in 2 weeks. And C, sometimes you give all these gifts, and then they're still crying. Because they told Santa they wanted something and they didn't get it, and you're like, you're ungrateful. So I'm not trying to be a Scrooge here, but
so you're that dad. Okay, got it.
You may want to dial back and say, back 40 years ago, you got one wooden train, and that's what you got for Christmas. You're lucky you got 15 Nerf guns. I mean, I think there's people that feel that way. Let's get back to the true meaning of it.
And the gift of the experience, you get the anticipation. They open it, they know something. We're going on a trip, or we're going to do this thing, and then that builds up too.
So it's a good trend. I like it.
Dad Pete. I had to walk uphill when I was a kid.
No fun for Christmas.
Oh, boy. Scrooge. No, just kidding. Turning now to your headlines. Chaos and confusion for life.
Well, from politics at the dinner table to serious seasonal stress, the holidays not always easy. We have a doctor in the house who is here to help you and your family stay safe and healthy this Christmas. Fox News medical aid team member, Dr. Mark Siegel. Thanks for coming in. This is the type of thing.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so delighted. I'm always delighted to get to hang out with you. And so this is a wonderful treat for me on Christmas Eve. And these topics that we're going to talk about are really something everybody can relate to. You want to see your families at Christmas, but sometimes it can be a little nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah, Molly, 8 out of 10 people are actually under stress at this period of physically that you're not used to doing.
All right, Dr. Siegel.
And also, when you're out on the road, one more thing. When you're out on the road, look out for the other guy. Even if you haven't had anything to drink, even if you're well rested, the other guy may be weaving lane to lane. Watch out.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Siegel, thank you so much. Very safe travels to you over the holidays. We appreciate you coming in.
Happy New Year, Merry Christmas.
Yes, you too. NSA leaker Edward Snowden exposed top secret government information.
That came in from Anthony in South Carolina. You could be the DJ today. You could pick your favorite Christmas songs.
Yeah, and
let us know.
We've already heard some great favorites. Ones I don't even think of so often. Some of these ones that are less played than others.
I know. Now's the time to play it because you're not going to play it come January. So email us, friends@foxnews.com. We will be, as you said, you are the DJ this morning on this Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Have you gotten all your Christmas shopping done?
I'm pretty close. Pretty close.
You better get it
Yeah,
done.
I know.
Yeah, you got to get it done. Yesterday was Super Saturday.
5 more minutes.
Was.
Yeah.
Super Saturday was your last chance.
It's your last chance.
I guess today we got a little time.
A little bit.
So we want pictures. Friends at foxnews.com. Pete's favorite song, Make America Great Again. We're going to play that later.
We are. It's Make Christmas Great Again.
Oh, okay. Is that what it is?
It's always been great, but it's just got a little bit greater.
Yeah,
And
we've already
keep
got
your
some photos
emails
pouring
coming.
in, actually.
Right. Christmas holiday or any other holiday, we certainly remember the troops today that are not here as we enjoy a cozy and comfy Christmas Eve.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of news because the president was busy yesterday down in Florida tweeting about a shakeup at the FBI. The president saying, among other things, how can FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, the man in charge, along with leaking James Comey of the phony Hillary Clinton investigation, including her 33,000 illegally deleted emails, be given $700,000 for wife's campaign by Clinton puppets during investigation. He's referring to Andy McCabe has been very powerful back to the Comey days at the FBI, still there as the number 2. He oversaw the Hillary Clinton investigation while his wife was running for office in Virginia, got over $500,000 in campaign contributions from a PAC tied to Terry McAuliffe. Obviously, very, very close to the Clintons. How could you possibly oversee an investigation of the email?
So much to unpack here. You spent a lot of time on Capitol Hill this week, of course, getting grilled before various committees. So we'll see where that ultimately leads. Some of the Republicans coming forward, not happy with what he had to say behind those closed doors.
Very true, Ed, as you talked about. He was the number 2 under James Comey. He was the acting director for a while. He's now the number substantial politicization atop the FBI, you shouldn't be able to walk away. So a lot more questions to be asked.
Democrats are trying to spin this, though, as, look, this is about the president pressuring the FBI leadership, trying to push them aside because he's worried about what they may have on him. Adam Schiff, who has been, frankly, on TV beating up on the president more than he's been behind closed doors working on these big issues, tweeted, FBI would set a dangerous precedent if it forced out dedicated career public servants in capitulation to Trump and White House pressure. President has already removed one top FBI leader, Comey, over Russia. McCabe would be another.
That's
and
right.
Schiff has also come down hard on Republicans as well, just in general, talking about this idea about pressure happening in Washington and the political ramifications.
You talk about Democrats and their talking points. So, of course, I opened up the failing New York Times this morning to see in the print edition where they would talk about this. Nowhere in the print edition. So you have to go online where Adam Goldman, if you read Adam Goldman's Twitter feed, by the way, a so-called journalist, it leads like a left-wing missives, but I'm remiss. He talked about how highly intelligent,
How do you really think? What do you really think?
Intelligent Andrew McCabe is, how he's beyond reproach, and he's got universal respect for standing up against Trump. Listen, I'm sure this guy's done a lot of good things in the FBI, but if ultimately he was part of, and we've got other names of where this FBI shakeup is coming from, if he was part of that, then places like the New York Times should be treating it for what it could be, as opposed to burying it online.
And the Democrats are trying to say it's about politics. I want to explain that, but first the shakeup. James Comey, fired by the president. We'll get into that. Andrew McCabe, reportedly retiring. General Counsel James Baker reassigned. Peter Strzok reassigned. After the text messages, reassigned where? To Human Resources Department. That's a little odd, number one. But number 2, James Baker, the general counsel, he's been accused of leaking details from the dirty dossier, the unverified information about the president that was then weaponized for these investigations. Here's why it matters. The FBI is supposed to be non-political. It's supposed to be fighting crime, making sure that we're safe. And by the way, there are hundreds, there are thousands of FBI agents, officials who protect us, who are working on counterterror as we speak, not just around Christmas and New Year's here in New York City, all around the country, all around the world. They're dedicated public servants. This is not about them. This is about the leaders from James Comey, Andrew McCabe, and others who clearly were involved in partisan politics. Andrew McCabe, in addition to his wife getting all this money from McAuliffe in this race, he was using, allegedly, his FBI official email account to promote her campaign. You obviously cannot do that. And these were the people who were investigating Hillary Clinton.
And when you talk about the reshuffling, James Baker, that is potentially a big deal. This is the general counsel who would be read in on all of these investigations. So for him to be moved, I mean, this is really a significant person at the FBI and someone who was brought in by James Comey.
And this isn't done. I mean, Andrew Weissman, who went to the Hillary Clinton victory party that ended up being a defeat party, is still the number 2 of the special counsel
of the Bob Mueller
of the Bob Mueller so-called investigation. So, which the president calls a witch hunt. I mean, you talked about Andrew McCabe. A photo surfaced as well of him in a campaign T-shirt for his wife. Listen, his wife's running. I get it. You're going to support your wife no matter what. But the idea of where this money is coming from, and it's so directly coming from the Clintons, while he's supposed to be investigating the Clintons,
or at least people close to the Clintons,
it just doesn't look good. And what you talked about, Ed, is so right. We have to remember how many great and faithful servants there are at the FBI who do so much work. But you know what? I think a lot of Americans feel like we're finally draining the FBI swamp. Not at the bottom, but at the top. So that those officials doing the great work are doing it in a way that is totally nonpartisan. And it's draining itself at this point. They're retiring because the truth is likely coming out.
Right, the Democrats are trying to say they're retiring because they're getting pushed out under pressure from the president. Or are they getting out because they know a lot more is coming?
But wait, there's more news. Turning now to your headlines. The Department of Homeland Security is now
largely secondhand, only a few, and as you said, not very disciplined sourcing. And this is why the White House is pushing back so hard, calling it fake news. Later on in the article in the New York Times, it says this: said officials, multiple officials, up to 10, strenuously insisting that Mr. Trump never used the words AIDS or Huts to describe people from other countries. Several participants in the meeting told the Times reporters that they did not recall the president using those words and did not think he had. But the 2 officials who described the comments found them so noteworthy that they relayed them to others at the time.
Right. So they're trying to say they heard it. It sounds like secondhand, that someone in the room told other people after the meeting. And so talking to those people, again, anonymously, they've now deduced that the president definitely said that, even though the White House produced all kinds of cabinet officials and others on the record saying not true.
Understandably, the White House is pushing back very strongly. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders saying, and naming names here, General Kelly, General McMaster, Secretary Tillerson, Secretary Nelson, and all other senior staff actually in the meeting denied these outrageous claims. And it's both sad and telling that the New York Times would print the lies of their anonymous sources anyway.
So here's the takeaway. We don't know who said what to whom and when. It's all anonymously sourced. But the takeaway is the point of the New York Times, and the reason the president calls them failing is they fail to tell the truth so often, is they want to paint the president as a racist. Top center Sunday, New York Times on Christmas Eve. The point is to say the president we have reshaping an immigration agenda does it because he's a racist. And you can see why the White House is so frustrated with what is not news, but is agenda that they feel like is meant to disparage this president at every turn.
And the Times is trying to say that they're adding context to the debate. This is why the president is so vehement about the subject of immigration. This is what he's really saying behind closed doors.
Right? I mean, but the insinuation is the president is a bigot.
With the overall immigration issue as well.
Right.
And you know, continuing action on that, the courts continue to weigh in.
But again, it's not because his motivation is defense of America, love of America, perpetuation of citizenship, allegiance and assimilation, all those things that he talks about. They put that in a box and they say, nah. He talks about AIDS. He talks about Huts because he's a racist. It's the same charge.
But you agree if he did say these things, it would be problematic.
Yeah, but I mean, they're pushing back. All the people who are in the room.
But if he did say it, it would be problematic.
I don't think he did. Of course, yes. I mean,
you don't think he did, but if he did,
you don't. He wouldn't want to say these things. I wouldn't say these things. You shouldn't say these things. But he's saying he didn't say these things.
Right.
And then there's the argument made that there's thin evidence that he actually said it, and then others believe that he will say it. And that's the thing. Now everyone's discussing whether or not this happened or not.
And now it's out there. They put it on the front page.
Now it's out there. And now it's out there. Exactly.
All right.
Well, meanwhile, Santa Claus is coming to town. In other news.
Well, I guess one of our presents to the audience is that you get to be DJ today on Christmas Eve. Happy Christmas Eve. You picked the music. And in fact, William from Connecticut said he wanted to hear Feliz Navidad.
William, we're somewhere. Gavina, our wonderful
she's probably dancing right now. I can see her.
You know,
she's in a red leather back there.
I think she moosed up your hair a little bit.
She did, a little extra for me today. It's Christmas Eve, and we're excited to be here on Fox and Friends on this Sunday. Molly Lyon, great to have you here.
Yes, wonderful to be
here.
Beautiful
green dress, love it, very festive.
He forgets about me all the time. It's all right, I'm used to it. And we've been asking you, send in your photos. The dogs who are dressing up, the kids, more important than the dogs. Ani sends this shot of her granddaughters under their. I just want to make that clear. Under their decorated tree with, yes, a nativity scene, and they just look beautiful.
And they do. Cool. They look like they're behaving. Donna shares this one of her finished tree. The dog Dover waiting for Santa and the presents. That's the spot to wait. You want to get first billing right there.
Before he did that, he was drinking out of the water at the bottom of the tree, no doubt. That becomes the drinking dish for dogs across America.
You right out.
That's right. And this from JJ, a photo of his son deployed in Iraq. Good man. Thank you for his service. We've been asking you all. Keep sending in your emails of really anything related to Christmas, but we're looking for military members or deployed soldiers, Marines, anybody. Send it in. friends@foxnews.com.
Some of our brave men and women serving all around the world, and we salute them not just around the holidays, all year round. But I think it's important to connect it to the big story this morning, which is the FBI, because we also have a lot of brave men and women who work in the FBI. They work to keep us safe. They're working on counter-terror missions now. They're fighting crime literally in the streets of America every day. But there's a problem right now with the leadership at the FBI, and that is something that the president's been tweeting about all morning. We've been talking about it.
Very much so. President tweeting this. He said yesterday, how can FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, the man in charge, along with leaking James Comey, of the phony Hillary Clinton investigation, including her 33,000 illegally deleted emails, be given $700,000 for her wife's campaign by Clinton puppets during an investigation? So the president, as he often does, raising questions about folks with political ties that looked to be helping his opponent. If you look at the double standard of how she was treated in that investigation with her emails, and it looks like, based on things we've seen, including text messages, trying to take down.
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpack here, but really the big breaking news regarding Andrew McCabe is that he could potentially be retiring in just a couple of months. The Washington Post initially breaking that he was considering that retirement when his benefits come in. He also had a very busy week up on Capitol Hill, spending a lot of time behind closed doors, testifying before.
Getting grilled.
Yes, getting grilled.
And who is he? I mean, that's the big question. Who is Andrew McCabe? We've seen all these various officials at the FBI and Justice go by. Okay, this is the number 2 at the FBI under James Comey, stays on now under Christopher Wray. And the important point is that his wife takes in over $500,000 in campaign money when she was running for the state Senate in Virginia back in 2015. You see him there campaigning with her. And as this has come out with the text messages involving other FBI people, they're human beings. They are allowed to have political views. This is a free country. You should be able to say, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. But the question is, does it bleed into your work? Are you doing fair, impartial investigations? So my point about his wife is not that she was running for office, but that she got over $500,000 in campaign money from a PAC associated with Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic governor of Virginia, who is very close to the Clintons. What happens after that race? Andrew McCabe is overseeing the FBI investigation of her email server. Does that not seem a little odd?
Absolutely. And she bleach bits, deleted emails to hide them, and then we don't know how forthcoming she really was in interviews because she was never under oath. She said she forgot so much of what it was, and that she gets exonerated for that 2 months. James Comey writes it 2 months before the exoneration. All of it stinks, and a lot of people call him Andy McCabe now because he was referred to in those text messages from Peter Strzok as we're talking about potentially an insurance policy.
And he's under significant pressure.
Meeting in Andy's office.
Talking a lot about Andrew McCabe.
If President Trump gets elected. Think about if you connect a few of those dots, how rotten it really looks. That's why it matters to so many people.
And the president also weighing in on this.
That's right. The pension matters on this too. Go ahead, Molly.
Yeah, he tweeting, FBI Director Andrew McCabe is racing the clock to retire with full benefits, 90 days to go.
Because that Washington Post story said that basically there had been speculation in Washington, it just came from there, obviously, that after these 2 sessions where he was grilled, Andrew McCabe, by 2 different House committees for over 7 hours each time about what he knew about the dossier, all kinds of other things we can get into, that he might be trying to get out the door. But now the Washington Post is saying, well, he wants to run out the clock to the spring because then he gets the full pension. And that's what the president is jumping on. And the other thing here is what Mike Huckabee said last hour. He said the bottom line is the president is under investigation. We can't leave that out. The special counsel is looking at why did the president fire James Comey? What is there? Does it connect back to the Russia investigation? Well, Mike Huckabee is saying, wait a second, there's a double standard.
This is not about the politics of who they were for, who they were against. Here's the issue. Is there a double standard at the Justice Department where if you have a certain political leaning, you get away with things? If you don't, you end up like Mike Flynn and you get charged. If that's the case, then it's not just rotten in Denmark. Something is rotten in D.C., and it has to be cleaned out, fixed, and totally purged.
You know, and the big question will be how much the so-called mainstream media covers this. If you open the New York Times this morning, it's nowhere in the print edition. There's a bunch of other stuff on the cover, but buried online is this story where it refers to Andrew McCabe as highly intelligent, beyond reproach. He has so much respect because he's been standing up against Donald Trump. And this reporter, Adam Goldman, I don't know him, but I read his Twitter feed this morning, and it reads like a standard Democrat. Cool. So the frustrating part is you don't feel like you're getting the straight story, and it almost takes the president's tweets and some truth tellers to actually investigative reporters like Sarah Carter, who's been on this and has revealed details that have
said
come
there was going to be a
true.
shakeup coming, too.
Here comes the shakeup.
And look, we should say the Democratic side.
The
Democrats are saying, though, that the reason why some of these officials are leaving is that there's political pressure from the president. The pushback from the president's side is no, they're leaving on their own because they've got something to hide. We're going to see. This stuff's coming out.
And there's a long list of shifting things happening there at the FBI. But turning now to your headlines, the Department of Homeland Security
can read, there you go, and one that is sort of emblematic of generosity. And I think as a parent, you do have that balance. You want to give so much because you love your kids, but you don't want them to get 1,000 gifts and then not care about them either. Gratitude is a really, really important
Yeah, you were saying that
and
at the top
what
of
about
the
the
show.
comparative pressure, like the tooth fairy? When somebody's tooth fairy gives $20, somebody else's tooth fairy gives $1.
$20. What kind of tooth fairy you got?
My kid's just getting her teeth, so we don't have to worry about that.
Those are big teeth.
Those are big. Really,
Rick wants to weigh in on that.
Those are rid of my teeth.
Yeah.
Just start pulling your teeth.
You're just taking them out?
Jeez, yeah,
I like
of
that.
course.
All right.
Yeah, well, let us know. Friends at FoxNews.com. What is
what do
the
you think?
right number of gifts to be giving your kids?
If you listen to Pete at 6 o'clock, he was like, I don't think they should get a lot of gifts. They waste them.
One gift.
Like, whoa, how old are you, buddy?
But interesting one that you can read.
Yeah.
That was a fair one. I
like
think that's
it.
certainly a good thing to get kids reading, for sure.
Intelligent Report on the Fox Business Network. She joins us now to react. Trish, good morning.
Good
Merry
morning.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you guys.
So you've been following this story very closely.
Yeah.
What are the big takeaways here for you?
What I simply do not understand is why no one in Washington seems to understand conflicts of interest. And this gentleman clearly had a conflict of interest because his wife received hundreds of thousands of dollars from Clinton folks, people that were backing Clinton for her campaign. And this, it just gets to over and over again. We talk about these conflicts of interest and money in Washington, and you can't even really have the appearance of that because just the appearance alone is not good. And you just wonder how McCabe could have run that investigation into her emails when, his wife was benefiting.
The average person is looking at this
is
like, is Donald Trump really getting a fair shake, number one? And was Hillary Clinton, did she get preferential treatment?
Well, whether she did or she didn't, it's the appearance of it. And that's just wrong. I mean, the Ethics Committee should have never allowed him to run that investigation, period. I mean, this is why, we talk a lot about Uranium One as well, as being another case of just things looking bad. How is it that Bill Clinton was able to get $500,000 from the Russians shortly after that deal was approved for a speech? It does not look right. He shouldn't have
Plus
been
the money
allowed
to the Clinton Foundation.
Exactly.
What do you say
Millions
to-
of dollars to that.
Yeah, what do you say to people that make the argument that these are investigators, that they can set any political bias they may have aside and do a fair investigation?
Look, everyone has a little bit of bias, right? We're all human beings. You can't entirely put aside your bias. And even if you could, the fact that your wife is benefiting from people that are close to Hillary Clinton, and now you're running the investigation into her emails, even if you could entirely, and I don't believe you can, it doesn't sit right with the American public. And you know what? These investigators, they need to clear a certain bar. And this, to me, is a basic.
Should be an even higher bar, if you think about it. Well, Trish, folks can hear more from you in about 11 minutes. You're hosting For Maria on Sunday Morning Futures.
Yeah.
What should folks?
Oh, we got a lot. We're going to talk about the tax plan and what that's going to mean for the economy, the good stuff.
Oh, yeah,
and a
that
little bit of
tax
bad stuff
plan.
in there.
There's a tax plan.
You've been speaking about that lately. I heard something about that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I want it all, right? So it's very good, but there are some, little things, little loopholes that some folks got away with within the private equity industry that don't make me too happy. However, I would say it's going to be very good for the American economy. And it's going to be very good for the stock market and very good for businesses.
Well, it's an early Christmas present for all of us that normally we get your wisdom every day at 2 p.m. on FBN. Now we get an extra hour of you today. Don't miss it, top of the hour.
That's right.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Trish.
guys.
Appreciate it. All right, up next, singer Steve Emerson